Okay, so we're going to start the third video. Last video we went through some CAD cleanup, relayering, joining. So we want to go through elevating. So we're going to talk about elevating the line. So far all we've done is clean up our face of curb or edge of pavement. We have isolated our proposed contours. We have established our building pad. We copied that over and renamed the layer, and then we also have the existing contours. So CAD cleanup is not, sometimes it's easy, most of the time it takes most of your work. So there's a lot of, when you bring in a vector PDF, things aren't joined correctly, the ends points are shifted, so it's not an easy task to do, but it does take time. As you move through learning to join, use the join command, trim, extend, fillet, chamfer, things like that, it does get faster, but that is a struggle for a lot of people. And like I said, we're going to do, there's another video that should be posted that's called line string, and it talks about the line string editor. But we are going to do some line string on this curb face. We're going to elevate the curb face, but what I want to do now is I want to focus on our contours. So I want to start with the existing contours. So these right now, they're just lines. So the good thing is they are joined. There is some gaps where they don't touch, so you can see where there is a gap in the contour. But for the most part, we can kind of walk through and we can start elevating these lines. When you come in as vector, again, nothing is elevated. So our goal now is to start applying some elevation. So I do like to have the map on in the background when I do this. And there's a way to view these lines so that you can tell as you elevate they change color. Okay, so if you come over to the view filter manager and you come over to this display options, now video one we did do some advanced cleanup on this filter manager window and we shut off the other two. So but display options is something we want to leave on. There's an option here that says zero elevation display as alternate color. Now these lines, even though they are zero, in a sense they're undefined, but there's no elevation on them. So but I want to change this color. Down here the alternate color is gray, or my template defaulted to gray. I want to change this to magenta. The reason I do that is it doesn't show up, it shows up clear on this PDF that's grayed out. So actually I'm going to change this. I want to see if green, yeah, let's choose green, and then as we elevate you'll see it change color. And so let's come up here, pull these down. So again, we select green, everything turns green. So if I'd actually turn everything on, everything would be green. So if you see everything as this color, that's because it's all zero. And as we elevate the contours, it's going to change colors. So there's a couple commands I want to use when we start elevating, and some of this is just some basic CAD function, and some is in data prep. Okay, the data prep tab. So let's go to the data prep tab, and a command that I use first and foremost the most is probably set line elevation. Okay, so I'm going to walk through some of these commands and explain to you where I would use. So set line elevation, it's nice because when you hit the elevation you can have it read text. In this case we don't have any text, so we got to type in the elevation. But this command is set up. I'm not worried about setting vertical offset or add surface. Everything we're elevating is as it reads on the plan. So our proposed is going to be finished grade, our existing is going to be the existing contours. We'll worry about subgrades in the next video. But in this case I want to make sure my focus window is in the line. I want to pick the line, and then I'm going to type in the text. So 1057, hit enter. Now it automatically tabs back up. I didn't hit the keyboard, it just automatically goes back up. I want to click the next one, type in 1058. I want to go to the next one. Oh, hit enter, sorry. Then we'll go to the next one, 1059, hit enter. So you can see the color change. So as it elevates, the color changes of the lines. And then as you type in an elevation and hit enter, it jumps back. So it kind of walks you through, get you ready for the next selection. Okay. There's another command. I'm going to close this out. There's another command of the data prep grouping under the elevate group. There was set line. There was a command called contour. And I will use contour when I have something like this, because you'll notice these contours step up. 1060, 1061. I'm looking at the lighter gray in the background. 1062, 1063, 1064. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and set my first one. It's going to be 1060. And I want it to increment up, and we're going to increment every 1 foot. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit this first one. You'll notice the increment elevation jumps up 1, so it's ready for the next one. So I'm just going to walk on through as high as I can go, and I'm just picking each one. Missed it, and you'll see that red flash means I missed the line. So I'm just going to pick. I'm just going to walk through. Now some of these, not all these are joined, but I'm going to kind of walk through 1067, 1068. Now the command will keep walking up, so if you get to the top of the hill, then you need to stop and maybe go in reverse. 1070 is good. 1071, 1072, 1073. There we can go all the way across. 1074, 75, 76. Okay. Now what you can see is some of them, I'm going to shut the georeference off. Some of these are elevated because the color is different, and some of them are not. Well, you can see the ones that are not is because they didn't join across. All right. So it's still hard to see that color a little bit. I'm going to close this out. I want to change my alternate color back to magenta just because I got that PDF shut off. And now what I want to do is you'll notice the blue and the magenta, you can see a little different. I'm going to use some of the tools. So I might use some of the tools, like I could use the fillet chamfer on this one. And you're just closing up or joining these, and you're going to join across. Okay, you do not have to do this. You could go through each individual line, but sometimes when you have existing contours, they are dashed, and it does try to join the dashed lines, but sometimes there's gaps that can't be, or there's text that's blocked out that make the joining not consistent. Okay, so I'm going to go to the CAD tab, and I might use the join command on some of these, like here, but first thing I'm going to do on this first one is let's go to fillet chamfer, and I'm going to pick the known. Pick the wrong end. You'll see a lot of this existing contours can get a little weird. So I wanted to close out of that. You can see, oop, I didn't hit apply. So fillet chamfer, and we're going to go apply it. Now I'll use the join command, and a lot of times on this existing, I will force it to close. So I'm going to go click the one that's elevated, click the next one, and I want to shut this off. So you can shut the question because there's a gap, just say yes. And then a lot of times I'll turn the auto advance on, and it allows you to kind of walk on through. Okay. So again, don't forget to jump back when you want to move to a new line. So you can walk through and elevate. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to pause for a minute, and we'll get all this elevated, and then we're going to jump over to the propose. So work on getting all this elevated, and again, what you want to end up with is if you come into the home tab and go to 3D view, I like to look at this in perspective. So as you elevate, even though you have it alternate color, I do like to come in here and look at it in 3D. And well, a lot of times what I'll do is if I got a bunch of miscellaneous items down here, you can select the items in 3D view, come back to plan view, and kind of see which ones you still need to get. I have a lot to get, so I want to pause it. We'll elevate this, and then we'll move over to propose. I'll show you a couple other commands, so I want to pause. Okay, so I want to hit a few things. We've gone around and we've elevated everything. There's a few outlier pieces, and a lot of times I will go back to the existing plat, sometimes the plat of survey in the plan set or a alt survey. They may show the existing ground contours or more spot grades, but there are some outlier pieces that you may or may not know what they do. Now, I do a few lines I may not need if they're small pieces hanging out. So again, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll select everything in 3D view. Okay, now I kind of look at the drawing and say, well, I do have two pieces out here. I have no idea. I don't see them affecting because my grade's going to come from this contour up to here. There is some sort of swell, but I don't really know what them are, and they're two little pieces, and they're not going to affect. You got to be cautious because again, you're making a surface out of this contour. These contours are what will make up our original ground. So we're going to strip this ground, and we're going to have a surface that we're going to compare finish to get our quantity. So we do want all these contours to be correct, but there are a lot of intermediate little tiny pieces you'll see, and you're going to have to make a determination if they matter. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about, what I have left out here on the corners. This is in a ditch along the road. I'm sure there's a contour laying out here, and then there's some contours up here. One thing I like to pay attention to is where is my work being performed. So we're going to have a disturbance that starts here and works in and comes back this way. You can see where the proposed tie-in along here. These contours aren't going to have any effect on my surface. Okay, so same with these two, same with this set down here. So I'm actually going to hit the delete button. And again, I only say that because you do want to pay attention if you don't want to delete something that's not elevated. So I looked at it in 3D view and select down here. When you're in 3D view, again, you have your information up here. Let me undo that, make sure that makes sense. This is all my 0 or 2D information. This is the data I elevated. So I like to go into 3D view and lay that back. I'm pushing on my mouse wheel and rolling forward. And if I highlight that information, I want to delete these elements. There's two little pieces here. There's a little piece right there. And these out here on the outer edge, they're not going to affect my surface of the existing. So I'm going to delete that. They're not inside the quantity area. Another area on existing you have to pay attention to is there's some contour lines on this ditch that cross. Okay, they're going to create some flags. So what that means is you can't have two break lines or two contours crossing at different elevations. So if you have two lines crossing, and again, when we start doing the curb line as we elevate, you have to have the same elevation where the two crossing break lines cross. And in this case, we have two contours with different elevations, and they're crossing crossing over the top of each other. So in this case, I'm going to use the break command. So if you go to the CAD command, I don't want to delete the contour because the contour covers right inside the middle of my work area. Okay, so I'm actually going to break this contour along this ditch. I don't need it. So you can come up to CAD and go to break here in the edit grouping. Break is one of those commands that is in the right click menu. So come out on the screen and right click, and with that line selected, you can just pick. You'll see it snap. I'm just going to pick there. When it jumps back up, now this is not, the auto advance is not checked, so it'll jump back up to the line. If it is checked, it'll carry on the same line. I'm going to pick a different line. I'm going to break that one there. I'll come down here and pick a different line. I'll break that one down here. Another line, break it there. And that looks good. So that'll give me the option, close that out. Now I can click here. Don't need that one. Click here. I definitely don't need delete that one. So I'll click this one, and this one, and we'll get rid of those pieces. So we don't have lines crossing, and we kind of trimmed out around the outside of our limits. Okay, we do have some proposed down here, no grade. Probably should not have deleted that one. Let me undo. Again, I don't want to remove something that's inside my working area, so I'm going to break that back here. So we'll select that one, that one, that one. Again, I'm just trying to remove on the outside. Don't know if it goes up or down. I'm not too worried about it because it's outside our limits. I want to put that one back in because it does cover the limits. Alright, so we do have 3D elevation for our existing. Let's go over here and let's shut off our existing group. And then let's turn on our proposed contours. Now, proposed contours, I actually changed my color back once I had my PDF off as I was working through that. I'll show you a couple more commands and then we'll pause and elevate all this data. This is a little simpler because it's a lot of these lines are joined all the way through. So display an alternate color. I want to change this back to green so we can see these colors. Now I want to use a command. I have to elevate a couple to start. So let's go to the data prep tab. Let's go set line elevation. And I want to do a couple. So I'll click here, type in 1058, hit enter. I'll type in 1059, enter. Now you'll see those colors change, and I want to shut the georeference off on this. So as we're coming up a hill now, as we come up the hill, you'll see it crest to a flat, and then it looks out here. It has some flat area. So we have an option called data prep under the elevate group called contours by crossing. As long as you cross two known lines, doesn't matter first line or last line. But I already elevated 2 lines. I can run this. This is going, I'm going to leave all this up here automatic, and it's just asking for a crossing line. And what a crossing line is, if you remember the drag left, drag right, the drag top right to the left gives you a dashed line. Well, that is a crossing line. So this is a line that anything touches. I click over here. I put my cursor here in the from window. I come over here. I pick. I'm just going to drag across, and you want to be careful you don't cross back over the contour twice. So I can actually go all the way into the inside of this contour and watch as I click here, left click, it'll elevate these. I'll look at this in 3D. It starts to elevate these contours up because it's going uphill. Now again, it only counts the contours. It won't continue or continue downhill. It's just going up the amount of contours I crossed. Okay. Now you can run that in certain instances. In this case, I probably won't run it anymore. I would probably go back to set line elevation, or I might do contour, so we can do a combination of both. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to turn my georeference on. And I might use the contour over here to start on this one. So that's 1055, 1074. So we're going downhill and there's a small sliver. So I'm going to start at 1076. I want to use the contour option. I want to count down every one interval. First one's 1076. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to step through, clicking on each one of these. 1073, and I'll continue on as long as I can keep counting down. 1072. Let's see if I have there's a 1071, and then I believe the building pad's 1072. So I think that's about as far as I can go. So let's close this. Now I'm going to use the set line option. So let's pause again and let's get all these elevated. This one is a little easier, shouldn't take as long. So I'm going to pause and then we'll start up again. Okay, all of my proposed is elevated. A couple things we'll talk about when we're elevating. We don't want to do much deleting when we're doing proposed because there is a little sliver like right here on the edge of this property line. And it is a 1065. So a lot of times I don't want to delete that because this slope carries down and there's material that we got to account for. So there's a little sliver there. That's one I wouldn't delete. So in the realm of proposed, be maybe a little more detailed oriented, but again, some of the existing outlies, I know a lot of you probably cringing when you watch this, but if it's a small sliver on the existing, I might get rid of it, but on the proposed, I probably would not do that. So we have we have vertical elevation on our proposed contours, and we have elevation on our existing contours. All right. So we have the basis of what we're going to start elevating, and our goal here, and it wasn't clear, I guess, at the beginning, we do want to elevate proposed contours. We want to elevate existing contours. We want to put any spot grade elevations that we have in the print. So we want to delineate our face of curb grade. So we want to pay attention to our building pad grades. And our goal now is to start getting to a little more of the detail. We want to focus on some of these spot grades. We do want to focus on our building pad elevations. And we'll handle some of this pad here that's the dumpster pad. So we're going to get a little more detail. This was just elevating the contour sets. Okay. So right now we're just focused on all elevation as far as contours. What we're going to move into now is we're going to look at face of curb. Okay. So let's turn on our face of curb. Actually, before we do that, let's start with our building pad. Let's click on our building pad and then turn the georeference on. So I'm in View Filter Manager over here. We know the finished floor, or the FF here is finished floor. I'm actually going to assign that elevation to that. I want to show you a couple things. You can use a set line elevation, and set line elevation shows up on the CAD tab as well. But a lot of times with something like this, these are still considered CAD polylines, okay? So if I right click and do a properties, if it's still a CAD polyline, you have the option of a elevation. So if you'll notice, I could just come over here and go 172 and then assign that elevation, okay? So when it's in a CAD polyline or a line, CAD polyline option, you do have the option of going to properties and you can type in the elevation. When we start delineating our edge of pavement or our face of curb, we're going to convert that into a line string. As soon as you convert a CAD polyline into a line string, you no longer get this option. You have to use the edit line string command. So again, if I can see it as a CAD polyline, again up here in the properties at the very top, click on the line, properties. CAD polyline, you can actually establish a single elevation for that CAD polyline. This over here is not going to be a single elevation. Right now I'm going to leave it at null, so there's no elevation. If we click on it, you'll notice it's not a zero elevation, it's just an undefined elevation. I'm going to leave that undefined for now. So when we're talking about elevating curb line, it's not a flat elevation, so we can't use set line or elevate by contour or contours by crossing. We have to use what we call the line string editor. And there is another video. If it's not posted, it will be posted. And I talk about the line string editor quite a bit. But the line string editor allows us to establish line with carrying slope. So if we look at this curb face here, this curb face starts 105.71, hits a 1058, comes up, hits a 1058.66 here to corner, 1059. So it's variable slope. But there's a couple things we can do before we start to elevate. So let's go ahead, and I want to do one line. So if you click on this line, you'll select it and then right click, and when you right click you get the option of edit. There's an edit right here, and this takes us to edit line string. Okay, now you got to remember this line is joined. It is a forced join, so you get some corners that maybe not be perfect. Your arcs are not arcs, so it's from vector data. So it's not really all that great. It's not a real clean line like if we had CAD data, but it's going to work for the takeoff. Okay. So when we edit this thing horizontally, you immediately start in the horizontal tab. And when you start in the horizontal tab, you actually can move through the segments along the line by using these imaginary arrows right here. So if you come over here, you'll see these arrows. And I'm just going to show you, if you use this arrow and push it right here, you'll see on the screen the red line. It's selecting each segment, and you'll see this number count up. So that is how many segments you're stepping through. Okay. Now you're stepping through each segment, and we can get to each point to where we could elevate it. So if I did want to assign an elevation there, I could. This is one of those areas where the line doesn't necessarily meet real well. Okay, so we could clean that up. We might as well do that now. So if I arrow to that segment, I don't like that. I'm just going to nudge that. So there's an option here to remove the current segment. So you'll notice that that little segment is highlighted red. That arrow, when I get close, means that's the segment that I'm on and the directional arrow of the line. Once it's red, I can hit this remove current segment, and now it cleans that up. Okay, so if you see those as you go down through here, you can clean them up. Looks like here's another one. So if you notice that arrow, there's a little jump there, so I might click there. Actually, on this one, I'm going to click this segment and remove it, and that pulls that way. So again, this is not needed. As you walk through, or as you use this line string editor, and again, if you click a line, right click, say edit, it converts it to a line string, takes you to the editor. As you master this command, you actually get, it does improve speed, but you can do a lot. And in the other video, I showed a little bit more what you can do with this. So as we step through this, we're stepping through the horizontal tab, right? So I want a way to be able to assign elevation quickly. Well, I'm going to use what we call the vertical tab. You'll notice down here on the horizontal tab at the very bottom, you can assign an elevation here. Well, if you click on the vertical tab, what the vertical tab does, if you come out on the screen, you kind of go around an arc or the curve area, you'll notice it rubber band or bring a line that's perpendicular to the line. It's always perpendicular, okay? So this gives us an option. So I'm going to just show you how. I want to start here. I want to let it pick the end point of that line, and I'm typing on the keyboard 1057.71. I'm typing it in right here. Now I'm going to hit enter, or you could hit save right there. You'll see the elevation show up on the screen. Okay. Now I'm going to click here in the next one, 1058.66. And I'm just going to walk through and get all the spot grades as we go around this line. As we come up to a inlet, don't worry about the contours. I'm going to show you another method we'll use there. As I come up to the inlet, there's no spot grade there, but you have to pull out, and you can see the elevation or the rim elevation, 1063.86. And I'm just going to drop that right in the middle. I'm going to eyeball that along that line. Again, we're dealing with the takeoff. So again, I'm just going to walk through, get all the spot grades I can along this line. 1070.55. Now you're noticing as I click a spot, so I'm coming up to this next spot. This right here where it says current VPI, it says adding VPI. So a lot of people will type in something and maybe they mess up. So these arrows that we dealt with in the horizontal tab are also here in the vertical. So we can back up. So if I click on that, you'll notice as I'll zoom out, you'll notice this red arrow, the red triangle steps through each point. So if I have one that I missed, I'll arrow right till I get to that one. Or sorry, if I typed in the wrong elevation, I'll arrow to that one point. And then I can come down here and type the elevation that's correct and hit save, okay? Anytime you do that, I have to put it back in add mode. So I'm on the vertical tab. It doesn't say adding VPI here. These two icons down below is add VPI and remove. So if I fix what I need to fix, now I'm going to come over here and put it in add mode, okay? Once I put it in add mode, I'll be back. My focus is now down here on distance along, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball. I'm going to use these snaps, making sure that little yellow box pops up, and that's where it's going to snap to. The little circle is that vector snap that we get. Again, when we placed we geo-referenced our PDF instead of place it, we get this little vector. It allows you to snap to where that X is supposed to be, and that's why I like to have the snaps. So there may not be an endpoint there, but I can see the vector snap. And as soon as that turns yellow, I'm going to pick it, and 1071.7, and we'll continue on, okay? So again, make sure you're in add mode. A lot of people will edit or mess up, and make sure when you type in the elevation, you hit save or hit enter, and then you always want to be back in the distance along here, okay? And if you get out of it, so I'm going to forward and back again, just so we can go over that again. If I back up and fix something, maybe I need to move it, so maybe this one's in the wrong spot. Well, I can change the distance along here. I can pick the spot I want it to be, and this one is in the right spot. Once I change it, hit save. To get back to adding, I have to put add VPI right here, and then I can continue on, okay? So I'll walk around this line, 1071. 070.64. Alright, so I'm going to pause. I want to finish this line, and then we'll talk about another line, okay? So I'm going to pause. Now I've completed this line. So again, I've started through. I'm in adding VPI, and I started here, and we stepped through, and I elevated all the spots along this line, okay? Also hit the center of these inlets so that, and with the rim elevation, so I can get that rim elevation assigned, and ended up over here on where it matches existing, okay? We have assigned these at the vertical tab. I want to show you something. In the vertical tab, it is showing our elevations. If I click on horizontal, watch what happens. The elevations will disappear. It is possible to have the elevations assigned in the horizontal, but in this case, it's easier to assign them vertically because we're just walking along the line as our line here, our rubber band goes perpendicular to the line as we go around the arcs. It's easier to assign it in vertical, okay? So if you switch from horizontal, you'll notice it doesn't show the elevations. Switch to vertical, it does show, it brings them back, okay? Because they're assigned in the vertical property. Let's close out of this command, because under the bottom hit to close. You're going to see your elevations disappear altogether, okay? Now, our lines are green because we are using display in alternate color, but this one we just elevated, okay? If I click back on it, right click again and say edit. So I'm going to left click on, right click and say edit. That brings us back to the line string editor. So we're in the line string editor command, and you can see your elevations. So the elevations are there. It's just when you assign them, they show during while you're running the command, but when you close out of it, they're not on. Now you can turn on line string. So they're down at the bottom, 4 or 5 in, you can turn on toggle line markings, and I think it's showing it off the screen, but it's this icon right here. If I turn that on, it turns line markings on. None of these have elevations, but on the one that is elevated, you can see it does show them on the screen. All right. Now I like to turn that off or on just for a check. I don't want to leave it on because it gets a little crazy when you have a lot of lines that you have elevation on. So again, I turn this on or off as a check, and it's right here. It's just one, highlight it yellow, it's on, uncheck it or check it again, it shuts off. Okay. Now we're going to move over to our second line. So I'm just going to do this little segment here. So I want to show you how to start this one. So I'm going to click here, select the line I want to start with. I always want to kind of check, make sure it has a start elevation or an end elevation, and this one does, and all of these on this project do. These are actually curb island closed entity. These entrances have a start elevation and an end elevation. That matters, and as you learn the line string editor, you can project grade, but we're not going to get into that into this video. We want to start editing this one. So again, just like we did here, we're going to click the line. Once we select it with the left click, I'm going to right click and use the edit command. Now, after you start using, if you're in the vertical tab, it defaults to the vertical tab. And if it's in horizontal tab, I do not want to assign these in the horizontal tab. I want to be in this vertical tab right here, and it needs to be in adding VPI. And I'm going to start again at the entrance. I'm just going to click where I want the elevation to be and the distance along right there. I'm typing in the elevation 1058.38, hit enter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit all these spot grades. We're going to deal with the contours here in a minute in a different method. So I'm going to walk along this line hitting all the spot grades. And then we'll move over to the next one. 1067.67. Click that corner. 1067.76. So again, if you mess up an elevation, you can take it out of add mode by hitting the forward back, arrow to the elevation that you want to fix, come down here, adjust the elevation, and then click save. Then you have to put it back in add mode, and that's this button right here, add VPI. Once you do that, you can continue on putting in the elevations. And I believe our 10.9, I believe our final elevation is here, 1070.76. So when that one's done, we do not have to close out of this command. We can jump over to the next line. So I'm going to jump over to this one. But a little trick. I'm in vertical tab and I'm done with this line. I want to get to this one. I don't want to have to close, repick it, right click, and say edit. I can just come up here where it says line, click on the line string, click right here where it says line string. I'm left clicking. Now I want to come over here and pick the next line I want to start with. It stays in vertical tab and immediately goes to adding VPI. Okay, so we're just going to go through this one. So what I want to do is I want you to continue on all these lines, elevating the spot grades only. Okay, we're going to handle the contours in a minute. And again, once you get done with this one, you're going to pick in this window and then go pick the next line. Okay, so I'm going to finish this one and then we're going to move over to the next line. So I want to pause the video. Okay, so you should have went around and done all the elevation of the spot grades. So if I'll check again as I look at this line, the spots as it walks around. Now there are some things that I want to point out. If you notice in these corners, when you have a good corner and the join command worked smooth in this case, a lot of your elevation will show at a 45. Okay, these here should show at a perpendicular. What happens is when you use the join command, it jumps across. Okay, so the join command is not that great when you're using vector data, but this is a takeoff. So in this case, I'm okay fudging that and letting that elevation, that join not be exactly right. Okay, you can go around and fix them. So if I'm doing this in data prep for a model to grade with, I'm definitely not doing that. But in this takeoff, I'm okay. I want to leave it. So our next step, so we have elevated all the spot grades along our curb line. We have the location where the proposed grade intersects the face of the curb. Okay. So I want to show you a command that you can use to elevate the curb based off crossing intersecting line. Okay, so let's shut our georeference. I want to change the layer of the curb face. So again, if you can't come over here to the layer manager, right click on the layer name, say layer manager. So view filter manager, right click on the layer, say layer manager. It actually brings you to that layer. It's already selected. I'm going to change that color. I'm going to change it to green just so it jumps out a little more. So I want to use a command under data prep that says elevate lines. So data prep, elevate lines. And what this is going to do is it's going to throw the elevation where the contour intersects that edge of pavement or face curb, in this case, at the contour elevation. So we're going to use the intersecting line option. We're not adding a VPI. You have to make sure you have a tolerance value, and I don't know if this where it defaults. It has to have at least a minimum of 3,000, so 300. There are times when I'll change this if I'm trying to force it to elevate based off some lines, but just the default tolerance has to have something in it. And mine was 0.03. You can actually take it clear down to 0.003 at a minimum. I'll put 0.03 back in there. Intersecting lines. This is the lines that's going to be intersecting our face of curb, so it is our contour, our proposed contour. So I'm going to come over to this options key. You could come out on the screen and pick each one, but I want to go to the options button here on the right. And it's off the screen, but I want to choose select by layer. And I want to scroll down and select our proposed contours. And everything on the screen will highlight. Another method you can do is you can come over here and say options, select by layer, in this pop-up menu on the right. It's off the screen. You can come out and actually pick one of the lines that you want to, the contour lines, and it'll select that layer. Okay, so you can either check it or you can pick it off the screen. And then the lines we want to elevate are the face of curb, so I'm going to do the same thing. Options, select by layer. Scroll down to curb face. Hit close. And then I'm going to hit apply. And when you hit apply, you want to pay attention. It'll tell you 7 lines were elevated, 57 lines. So you can kind of get an idea. We picked 9. 9 items were selected. It only elevated 7 of them. So the 7 that it elevated, we know 1 it left out. There was no contour that crossed this one. We'll go check. There's actually a piece, I think, floating around down here, and we'll figure out where it's at. But let's check our work. Okay, so this command is not bulletproof at all. It's not like it's instantaneously always right. So you want to go around. What you should notice, if you click on one of the line strings, right click, say edit, go to the vertical tab, you'll see your elevations. So there's our spots that we elevated. Well, we should have now even elevations where it crossed. Okay, so where your lines are crossing, you can see sometimes this is not in this curve. It threw them back because there's a break right before that face. So I just want to go through the step of maybe moving these. We want to move it. So we're going to trim out some of these contours in between the curb face. But if I wanted to move this, I would arrow until that section is red, or I could come out on the screen and pick it. What I want to do in this case is I want to move it. I kind of want to slide it up here, about right there. hit enter because we're keeping the same elevation. So I want to go through and I want to check this to make sure that these are all hitting where I want them to hit. It's probably a better, you don't need to slide it. In fact, again, we're doing a takeoff. You are sliding that, a few tenths along that face of curb, but I'm not sure it's going to affect the grade all that much. Look at this one. You can see it. It's not bulletproof. It's not like it's throwing that projection into that face of curb, but you could move that. I'm actually going to undo because I'm just going to leave it. Okay. But I do want to make sure at least got them all. So I'm going to walk around the print here, the lines. Here you can see it plugged 2 of them in. I don't like that at all. So the reason is that curb, that contour is running along that face of curb. And we're going to talk about that next. Yeah, that one. So there was a couple. I thought there was a couple of these that would miss. We'll check this one. Okay, so it actually picked up all the ones that we wanted to get. Okay, there's a little sliver that was on that. I want to actually get rid of that. So if you zoom into that center grouping, center island, there's a little piece sliver. I don't want that on there. I'm actually going to click on it and delete it. The thing you got to realize too is you don't want anything at 0. You can't have null elevation, but you don't want anything at 0. So okay, so that elevated our curb face and everywhere where a contour crossed. So we have a rough contours. We have contours existing. We have contours proposed. We have elevated our curb face line, and there's some rough parts to it, but this is a takeoff. We're just trying to get through it quickly so we can have elevated all spot grades and all the contours. Okay, so there's a couple things you might continue on. When I teach this, I use this example in class. Some people don't worry about this next step. We have to think about a back of curb line. Okay, so there is a back of curb, so there is a curb face. When I talk about a curb face, hang on one second, let me find the PDF here. Okay, so I found the detail. So we have to account for it. Some people don't. Again, like I said, when I do this training, some people are not worried about this. So there is material. So this edge of face of curb is right down here. So the grade that we have established is this gutter pan along this curb. And like I said, we did say at the beginning, I know this curb has a dry curb where the water is flowing out of the curb, and it has the catch curb where it's directing the water to some location. In this case, we're using face of curb, so we're assuming this edge of pavement gutter pan on both these. So our contours are assuming we have a top of curb in here. And again, there's an instance where we do this training and some people don't worry about this top of curb. The contours are going to take care of it. But you could use the offset command. So we could offset this gutter pan over 7 inches, so 6 plus 1, and raise it up 6 inches to get to this top of curb grade. And if I was data modeling, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd focus on the gutter pan. In the takeoff world, we have contours that are depicting that curb, like right here. So when you see this, a lot of times this contour comes up to a face curb, runs along the face of curb as if it's running up that 6 inches, and then it exits the back of curb. So we could use what we have here and not compensate for the back of curb. If you want to put in the back of curb, There is a few areas, like right here, you'll notice this contour line does not depict a back of curb right here. It does on this side, but not on this side, okay? So we could account for that. We could find the back of curb line. So kind of go back to our first video. I want to shut all this off. I'm going to turn our georeference on, and I'm in the View Filter Manager. I'm going to go to Layers and turn Layers on. I want to shut our display options over under View Filter Manager. Display options, let's put that back to normal. And then I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to find this back of curb. And we did click on it earlier, I think, in the video, but I want to click here, do a properties, right click. So parking curb back, okay? So that line is there. I want to find that line, and that line is actually on 2 layers, I believe. I'm going to come over here to this island, and I'm going to look at the back of curb here. That's on parking stripe. It looks like there's some of this is, the reason that's on parking stripe because there's no curb here. And they probably just have that delineated. That's curb back. Yeah, so let's pick on that one. That's curb back. Let's pick on this one. And then again, I want to pick on a couple of the lines I want to isolate. And then let's go to View Filter Manager. And the third icon above here from the right is View Only This. And then we'll shut the georeference off. So it does look like there's a curb on or something here. We might isolate that. Isolate that. Now, so we can join this line, and we'll just do it as an example. If I'm doing a takeoff, I may not put this in, but just go through some of the steps. Let's go to CAD. Let's go to Join. And I want to turn this. I had recorded this second video, and see a couple days later, and I had my auto advance. So again, I want to use this auto advance. I want to turn it on. I'll pick on this first line. I want to step through. I'm just going to join this back of curb line. So I'll show you how we can do a little bit of work to put in a back of curb to kind of compensate for some breaks there, the grade break on the back of curb. And it will reduce the flags where we have flags. We're going to talk about flags in a minute when we create our surface. I'll let that join across. We'll jump over to the next line. I'm not worried about the parking stripes, even though this is on a parking stripe layer. I just want to get that defined for a back of curb. I'm not going to go do spot grades on this one. I'm just going to have it elevate by contour and just put a grade break along that edge of the back of curb. It's not 100% correct, but in a takeoff, it's going to get us a better scenario for dirt grade. Not going to join across just yet. We're going to address that in a minute. All right, let's join. Let's work on this middle section here. Again, comment I always use is this one right here is a good example. Let me undo this. You're not being charged for the zoom feature. You don't try to join when you're zoomed way out, okay? So zooming is free. There's a little segment in here you join across, and again, trust me, I know that that's jagged, but we're trying to get a quick takeoff done. If I'm zoomed way out, I may accidentally pick the wrong side or accidentally pick this arc, and it'll join across. So Zoom is not, like I said, zoom's free. Zoom in, zoom out with your mouse wheel. Don't try to do it from a bird's eye view way up in the sky. Get in on your work and walk around the line. So that is not joined, so I'm going to close here. And a couple things you can do. I'm just going to use those CAD grips. I'm just going to slide that thing over. And then we might do a properties of that, see if we get an area, and we do. So that's closed entity. And I want to do the same thing here. So I'm going to go back to CAD join. Again, as you walk around this radio button auto advance, and it helps in this case because it just lets you walk on through the elevating a line. And then the same thing, I want to make sure that this is closed. And I might pull this feature up right there. And we have an area, so that means that's closed. That's good, that's good, that's good. I'll focus on this one a little bit. Step through where the drive-through area is. And we'll address that closed area in a minute. So what I want to do now, I've got them all joined. I'm going to actually pick one, hold the control key down, pick the other ones. I'm going to get all the back of curb. I want to get off all this other data out of the way. So all I'm going to do, this is not a curb here. There is a small curb piece right here we're going to account for in our material. But I'm going to copy this over or put this on a new layer. So I'm going to right click, say properties. And over here in the layer window in properties, if you pick it, hit the space bar. I'm actually going to put that on proposed, P-R-O-P, proposed, B-O-C. Okay, let's just say keep it the same, curb back. And we can leave it white, but I'm going to put it on our proposed group. And you can protect it if you wish. Hit close. Hit enter, so accepted. And now shut layers off over here under View Filter Manager. We have proposed curb back, curb face, and contours. Okay. So now we have all these segments. Let's address this closed feature here. So I'm going to fix this. I think we can just close that up. Let's turn everything on, see what happens here. That's sidewalk. It's interesting. There's a so it looks like that runs down back along. I'm just going to connect those across in this case. Let's turn that back on. And I want to edit this. Click on it, say edit. And then I'm going to go to horizontal tab and put it in add mode. And I'm just going to let that snap in and close on itself. And again, if you want to check properties, if you get a quick area, it means it's a closed object. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to say this is probably a little bit of cheating because I'm not going to build a true curb back, but I'm actually going to use this elevate lines by contours. So a couple things. Sometimes these lines, if you accidentally click or you join, something gets an elevation. I want to show you something that you can do. You can actually come to the CAD tab, and in the edit group, there is a change elevation right here. Now, based off your screen size and things, this may be in a different location, but it's change elevation. Okay. We're going to talk about here shortly some what we call undefined elevation. Undefined elevation is not zero. You may see it as a question mark. That's what we talk about when we're undefined. So we don't want anything at zero. Sometimes this data accidentally gets picked as on something like a contour. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select it. And I want to say undefined, hit apply. So it'll come out on the screen. Click right here in the box. Select it all. Select undefined, hit apply. That just wipes everything out. None of mine had elevation, but I was just wanting to show it. Sometimes you have to do that. Somebody gets an extra elevation hanging out there or something. They accidentally picked on a contour or something. So this is our lines. They are joined. We did close that gap. I'm going to go to data prep. I'm going to use lines. I'm going to elevate this again by intersecting line. Intersecting line. You don't want to use that 7, so pick out here in the space. Click down here in intersecting. Hit that. Just click out in the space on your left click. Hit options. I'm going to say select by layer. And I don't have them turned on, but I'm just going to pick the proposed contours. And then in the lines, I'm going to use that 7. I'm going to hit apply. And then close. Okay. Now, the back is not taking into account all the spot grades, but it gets a rough justification by the contour. So let's look at it in 3D and see if there's any we want to adjust. Okay. Just want to look at that curb set. And for the most part, that looks good. I want to actually stick an elevation down in here. Now, I'm not going to walk through each one, but I want to pick on this back of curb here. I'm going to turn my georeference on. And so we're using this idea that it's 6 inches from our gutter up to the top of curb. So if I want to put a spot grade here, I only have a few elevations. I want to add a spot grade into this corner. And a lot of times I'll just type in this elevation, 1067.76 plus 0.5. So you can do math inside that. 76 plus 0.5. I might go through and fill in some of these, some of these endpoints. These here, and you notice that there's no elevation on the end. I will like to close those up. Same thing. So I'm going to be 1070.76 plus 0.5. And then I'm going to jump across. I'm not going through and doing them all. I'm just kind of filling in some of the dead spots where it didn't get some of the highs and lows or endpoints. So I'm going to add one here. Back of curb. 1070.25 plus 0.5. Might stick one out here on this end here. 1067.71 plus 0.5. And then I'll definitely get all these endpoints. 1064.3. Now click add. This one, I definitely want to put some on this one. Again, you're just trying to fill in some of the spots where you're trying to compensate for the elevations missed because of the spot grades. You don't have to do them all. If you want to do them all, feel free. Definitely get these corners. Yeah, messed up, so I want to back up. Move the air forward and back, get to the one I want, and I'm going to adjust the elevation. So I typed it in just as I read it, need to add 0.5. And then put it back in add mode. So put it back in add mode. Again, you can put in as many of these you want. But I would always do like to hit the corners just because sometimes them are up or down based off the slope of those two contour locations. Looks like it got a bunch of them there. And even though it's a bunch of elevations, we're going to leave it. Just go with it. 1075.35 plus 0.5. Jump over here. I think I already got this one. Nope. I'll put it in add mode. Add some on the end. That messed up again. Back up, forward, plus 0.5. I will add one on the back of this back of curb, so 1070 plus point, or inlet, sorry. Put one on the back of the curb on that inlet. Put one here. Actually, add that one at that grade break. It's not a lot of work. Put them all in if you want to put them all in, but again, just hit some of the high spots, low spots. One there. Actually, it looks like it missed that elevation there. That'd be 1071. And then I probably hit some inside this. We're gonna work on the sidewalk next, but I hit some of these corners here. Actually, that is not plus 0.5. This is a flush curb here, so I'm going to change that and drop. We'll say minus. So there's a flush curb on this front, and I probably shouldn't have added it here either. So I'm going to add some of these on the front. Again, this is flush. This is not flush in the back. I'll add one back here. Now let's look at these two islands, and then we'll these two islands, I only had a couple of contours, so we do want to put that in there. And I believe this is flush from here forward. And this is normal curve, and that's flush. Back up. And then that's flush. And then we start our normal curve. Put a couple in this corner. I get something out on this end here. And I messed up on that one. Need to add 0.5. Need to add 0.5 to that one. Yeah, get in a hurry and you forget to add the elevation to raise it up. I want to leave that because it's got a contour. I'm going to put something out on this end here. And then we'll do this one. I think we got everything after that. Add a few of these. Messed up. Forward back that. Alright, now let's look at this. See if we got anything that's all really wrong. For the most part, look in elevation. So again, we're elevating. So this video is about elevating. We elevated contours existing, contours proposed, face curb. We elevated the back of curb. Looks like we have a bust here. Let's see, elevation 1064, 1065, 1066. Doesn't look like it's a bust, it just looks like that's the way it jumps in the pavement. Yep. So again, it's always good just to look at the data. It does look like there's a little bit of a jump right there. Contours are compensating for the curve. We're going to leave it. Okay, so we want to close in our area. So all this time we've been elevating data. So we're we're going to hit a few spots for our curb area, for our sidewalk area, sorry. We have some sidewalk grades up behind the building, sidewalk grades. We're going to let that sidewalk interpolate from the building pad down, okay? If you zoom into this building pad, there is a contour, a proposed contour that wraps around the building. That contour a lot of times will mess up. And what happens is that's pretty flat around there. So when I see this, and I see it more often than not, I'm actually going to get rid of this contour. So on the proposed contours, that contour that wraps around that building. Now, if this jetted off, this contour came out off the building and did some work, I may trim it, but I have the building outline. We have it elevated. So I'm going to get rid of this contour that goes around the building. So you can see we have a nice defined edge, and it's going to interpolate from the building out to our back at curb. So we're thinking about how we're building this surface. We have all our elevations. We have contours, face curb. We have a back at curb, although not very detailed. I want to close this item in. So actually, let's focus on the sidewalk. So I want to turn this georeference back on. Now, there's a couple things you can do with this. Couple things you can do with the georeference here, especially on sidewalk. Sidewalk, a lot of times, I don't want to go grab the CAD lines. I'm just going to use a CAD line string, and I'm actually going to put it on a new layer. So I want to go CAD line string, hit space bars, make a new layer. I'm going to call it 3D sidewalk. So these are lines that just make up our sidewalk. I'm going to make it dark green. Medium green. Put that on a proposed group. I'll leave all this the same, say OK. Now these are more or less grade breaks, so we have all these contours. You can see all this joining plan out here. I'm actually going to just snap, so let's say when it's in the coordinate window and come out, I'm going to use an override snap called line, and I want to kind of eyeball it. Again, we're talking about a takeoff. I want to snap off the back of that curb. I'll come over here. I want to use my fact that I can snap to my vector snaps on the PDF. I'm going to click there. I had my elevation shut off. Sorry about that. So we'll click this. We'll click this here and shut that elevation off. So I'm going to back up. And again, I had that elevation, so it did not ask me about an elevation. So I got to put it back in add mode. We'll snap through that contour right there, and then I want to come over and I want to do nearest again, or right click, say line. It used to be called nearest. In AutoCAD it's called nearest. Line, I want to let it snap there. Now I want to do a new one. Again, if you are picking along a known line, come out on the screen where you're focused in the coordinate window, say line. It'll snap to the nearest. We're just sketching in a break line to account for our sidewalk. And I'm going to kind of walk through and draw in this curb edge. And let's see if we've got any other breaks. Got some breaks out here in the front of the parking lot. I want to hit. I got a couple ridge lines. So I'm going to close out of this. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go line string. And I put these on break lines. So I'm going to make a new layer. Again, you can put this all on the same layer. Comment I always use, it's good housekeeping. So these are just break lines that are going to delineate a grade break. Maybe not delineate a subgrade depth, but would just delineate a grade break. So I don't want to forget them. So again, I want to use these snaps. That's why I like to use the georeference. So we'll just kind of walk through, put all these high-lows in. Come down here, say new, down here in the lower right corner. And you can actually snap some of these, so you can, if you want to let it snap to the end point, it will read the elevation. Just make sure you're not hitting a vector snap. I want to hit that corner of the contour, and then we'll just let it snap into a point here, kind of eyeball it, just an amount for the grade break. I might shoot across here, snap into that end point, say new. And I'm just trying to put in these breaks. I'm not going to affect, these aren't going to affect the grade all that much, these ridge lines, because our contours are compensating for it. But something like out here in front of this building parking, the ADA parking, I'll definitely put that in because it typically. Alright, so I think we have everything that delineates our elevation. So just put a few of those breaks in. Shut our georeference off. So now what we want to do is we want to think about closing up our entities here. Okay, so we have a couple areas that are still, we have to have closed boundaries, and on these entrances we want to close that up. This dumpster pad, we do want to make sure that we're snapped in, so I want to make sure that that's snapped into that endpoint there. So I want to make sure that that's a closed entity. And then as we come over here, I want to make sure that this is a closed entity on that end as well. We have to close this off. So I'm going to use these contours because it does have a delineator break along that edge. So I am going to go line string, and I am going to put these. So if you have a layer on, I want to draw on my edge of pavement or face curb layer. I'll zoom in and pick it there. So if you select it and then go pick an item, you can draw across, and then we'll snap through. And again, I just connected the dots, and I want to make sure those are closed up. Okay, so we'll come down and say new. Come over to this other entrance, same thing. I want to just let it snap here. I'm going to hit this contour because that is delineating a grade break, and then we'll snap there. And then we're going to do this entrance over here. So we're going to pick off the end of that pavement line, snap there, and snap there. Okay. Okay, so we have closed up our entity. We have all elevations. So if we come over here, I do want to save that. If we come over here and look at this in 3D view, we want to make sure that we don't have any miscellaneous items down here, and we do. I should have two, and I know what they are. It's this dumpster pad, which is fine, and then it is this circular island sitting out here. No grade break in it, but we want to compensate for our material thicknesses in these two locations. So everything we have done is elevated. We use line string to do the face curb. We went ahead and created a back of curb using elevate lines by intersection. We elevated our building pad by just doing a properties window. We elevated all our contours with various commands. So we have a good set of data that's ready to be used in our takeoff. So that'll be in our next video.